Hi everybody, this is Joey Busuttil and welcome back to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. What a month it's been. We've been interviewing some fantastic people and I'm doing a little bit of cheeky sneaking. I'm pre-recording some of the interviews and I cannot wait to share with you some of the amazing international guests that we've got to inspire you and to hear about how they live a fulfilled life. Now on today's show we've got somebody from America, Oregon, and they are a beautiful soul. They have a beautiful face, so get ready to see what she looks like. And she's a coach, spiritually and business-wise, and helps people to find their fulfillment through their own journey. So let's welcome to the podcast, ERIN McCULLOUGh. How are you, ERIN?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Did I say this? Did I say this to them right? Yes.
Yeah, ERIN.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. So today, as I was talking to you before we started, this is really just about you sharing about yourself. And I always start the show with asking people this simple question, and that is, how do you gauge fulfillment in your life?
Oh gosh. It took a long time to kind of figure that piece out. Because, like most people, I had sort of bought into society's like the house, the car, the, marriage, the kids, all the things, right? The 401k or the retirement stuff and all of that. And so I went just crazily, like so focused after all those things, and I got them. And guess what?
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. And I couldn't figure it out. I was
did you know that quite quickly, or was that a progression? Because like you said, I really love the way that you said I went hell for leather trying to get it, and people do work so hard. So how did you know that you weren't happy?
I didn't. That's the crazy thing, is I actually thought I was happy. And there was a series of things that happened where I finally was like, oh, I guess I'm not. And there were so many obvious things that I could, I feel like I should have seen. And I also know that everything is in divine order, and we know when we know, and we get revealed our answers when we're ready. And so clearly wasn't ready. But yeah, I mean, I did think I was happy. I had, the houses, the cars, I had a successful business, and by all rights, I should have been ecstatic. And I just was not. I was miserable.
I normally say, because of my own experience, I believe anyway, that a crisis is what got me to do the same sort of reflection. Was yours a crisis, or was it just a self-awareness that got you to go, hold on a second, I'm not happy, I need to look at something else?
It was a couple of things. The path, when you look while you're on it, it's like you can't see all the things because it's happening in slow time. But then when you have that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I met that person, and then I did that seminar, and then I read that book, and then I, did this, and I had that intuition to, make that choice. And so there were 3 defining moments, I think, in my life that got me on the path, but it took the final blow to get me. The first one was I had an anxiety disorder, and it was brought about by talk therapy of all things, because I basically created it as a defense mechanism so that I wouldn't feel the feelings.
Yes. Oh my God. I think that's what's happening to a lot of people in the world right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's what those things are. That's what anxiety is: stress, overwhelm, worry. All those low-level emotional experiences are just a distraction to not actually feel the things that are actually going to heal you from having that experience. So it's counterintuitive, but I know from my own experience and from working with other people, coaching them and guiding them along the way, that really is the thing. It's trying to make sense of that, just ignoring our emotions and tamping them down all the time and distracting ourselves.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I flipped that because of my experiences, and I think that anxiety is an excitement inside of you to find what you want. So I've just taken because I specialize in anxiety disorders. with my clients. And so a lot of people take that word and they get traumatized by it. So I found by flipping it and just saying, just imagine that every time you get anxiety, there's this imaginary, magical person behind you tapping you on the shoulder saying, get excited, right? And until you realize that, you stay in the trauma rather than looking at the fact that it's actually just someone guiding you to say, wake up. You know, because if you listen to your story, you had 3 moments. I had like 7, right? 7 moments that I could have paid attention. And then finally I had my last one. And yeah, it's the same sort of thing. So
it would be easy if you could just, go, I'm miserable. And, but I think people don't come to me to work with me until they've like reached their threshold of pain where they're just like, okay, I give up. I can't figure it out now. I need somebody else to help me.
But do you think that, again, I agree, but I feel that there's an opportunity for us as coaches and for people to realize that you don't need to go through that. Like, I don't want anyone to go through hell because I went through hell. So I really push the information about, you can either go through hell later, or if you want, you can try and process it now. And I think because of COVID, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, I think people are noticing that a little bit more. They sort of say, I got to do something, because if I don't do something, I'm going to end up stuck. Do you think that's happening?
Oh, yeah. It's like a perfect storm, the COVID situation, right? It's like, it's illness, it's lockdown, and then death, right? The idea that you could die from it, it's not the flu, it's not a cold, it's like you could actually die from it. And I think that death is probably most people's biggest fear because it's the unknown.
Yeah.
We're such control freaks. We're trying to control all the things. And there's just the one thing we can control: ourselves, our emotional experience. That's it. Everything else is up for grabs.
I love it. All right, let's start. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh, we didn't start yet?
No, that was just your introduction. We could talk for hours about just you and me, but the reality is that we need to ask you these questions. So the first question I want to ask is, what do you feel is the most recent thing that you've learned about yourself?
Oh gosh, that even though I know what I believe is the process to healing and growth, which I believe is why we're here, I still get stuck in, some of the patterns of thinking. One of the tenets that I teach from that I think is vitally important for healing and growth is taking personal responsibility for what you're creating in your life, the emotional experiences that you're having, and turning it around from, that person or that thing made me feel this way to that person did this thing and I feel this way. Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
And I literally in the last week found myself stuck in my own thing. And I just thought, wow, that's so interesting. I haven't been here in a really long time. And it was obviously a moment for me to go, okay, remember what it's like, so that when I can come with, a lot of compassion, super fired up for my clients, because it is not easy to decide that you want to change a pattern of behavior and being that has been we've been practicing it for so long.
Yeah, but it also shows everyone, which I love, because, I think you and I are twins. It's literally what you're saying is what I totally believe, and I love that. I think a lot of people think that they look at you and they think that you're perfect, right? And so what you're showing is that you're human, and being human means that this is something I believe that it's always going to happen in our lives. We have to always evolve. We can't just say, oh, look, I read that book, I'm healed now. The reality is that someone triggered you and you got triggered and you had to understand and process that projection, because you are human.
Yeah, totally. And couple things there. One is I'm absolutely a lifelong learner. I'm never going to stop learning about ways that I can heal myself and in turn help my clients. It's tricky. The mind, it wants you to do all kinds of crazy stuff.
I guess that goes with our next question. Yeah, I think that the next question then feeds into that. So you've just told us what you've learned recently, but now I want to ask you, what is it that you pretend you know, but you don't really know?
Let's see. What
Is
is
there
it
is
like
there anything that you
pretending?
think? Well, not the word pretend, but more something that you think you've got, and then now you're realizing, or maybe you're realizing when, oh, hold on a second, I don't really get this as much as I thought I did. Could
That
it?
is interesting question. What were you going to say?
I
Oh,
was going to say maybe that feeds into your last answer. How you thought you were, I haven't been here for a while, and there could have been a part of you that thought
yeah.
you don't project, and now recently you went, oh, I am projecting. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, and I wanted so desperately to make this other person responsible. My mind just kept going to like, and then I was like, no, 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 it does not feel good. And yeah, and that's the way it is. And so,
Did you figure out why? You think? Have you figured out why what was anything going on in your life at that time that made you sort of like forget what you know and go into wanting to blame someone else?
well, interestingly enough, it was, I don't know what's going on there, but there's a lot of divisiveness going on around this vaccination situation.
Yeah, same here.
And, um, and it just doesn't feel good for me.
Hmm.
And so I got into it with my significant other, and I learned something about him, and I didn't realize that it was such a hot topic for him, because for me it's not. Other than I'm not appreciating the divisiveness, and so I realized it reminded me of something that I thought I had already healed, right? And so the great news is that there's no arrival. It's a journey. And the things that we've healed, while I've healed a lot of them on a deep level, there's still stuff that can, poke at them. And then I get to look at them again and go,
Yeah.
wow, interesting. So I get
Uh,
to do an even deeper dive,
Yeah. And I guess we've never really dealt with this topic. So how do we I think that what you're experiencing is natural for everyone, because we don't have anything to benchmark getting a vaccination over a virus against. You know what I mean? So we can say that we're not going to get judgmental or project, but the reality is that what you just said about the vaccine is probably the biggest projection that most of the people in the world are doing. There's the vaccinators and there's the non-vaccinators, and there seems to be
right?
this clash. Are you out of it now?
Yeah. So, and the other good news is, when you do a lot of work on yourself,
Yeah.
all the time, you are, or I'll speak for myself, I tend to get out of it much quicker. Whereas in the past, I would hold on to these things and not be able to let them go for a week or many, many days. And now it just becomes, okay, I just need to go inside. I need to have a minute. I need to get some stillness. I need to just sit with my emotions, allow them to be, and then I'm able to move on.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
nice.
that's beautiful, because it means that you have value for your life, and you'd rather be there than to be angry or upset. Which I think again is
Yeah.
the reason why we're pushing this podcast. Rather than sitting in anger, you can sit in fulfillment, because really, you are, like you said earlier, we are the only ones that we can control. So, when it comes to your history of your life, can you tell us what makes family well, I guess, is family important to you? And if it is, what makes it important?
Yeah, I think family is super important, partially because of that. I was conditioned to believe that. But also, I think that not only is there generational and genetic things going on, but I believe that there is sort of energy in a family, right? And so some of that energy just comes through, whether we want it to or not sometimes. And so that definitely brings, families together. But I also truly believe that there are people in my world that, aren't necessarily genetically related to me, but they certainly are family.
Hmm.
Because for me, that, it's not so much about the unconditional piece, because I'm not 100% sure you could unconditionally love anything or anybody. Um, I'm still sort of contemplating that. Uh, but there is a kinship that happens amongst people in general. And when you start to understand like how much more alike we are than different, and
Yeah.
concentrate on those things, I mean, I really feel like everybody's my family. When I go traveling, I'm just like, I always tell my daughter, I'm like, how we come is how they come. So
Mm.
let's bring it and be like super kind and helpful and do all the things, and guess what our experience will be. And it is every single time. It's just, I meet beautiful people, and I realize again that like we all just want the same thing. We want to be
Yeah.
loved, we want to love, and we want to have deep, meaningful relationships with the people that we care about, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and everyone has their own version of that. Like I've come from, I always find this funny because there's a picture on the wall here that reminds me, I come from a family where my mum's got like over, 13, 14 siblings. So I've got hundreds of cousins.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So family for me has always been about overcrowded. So what would you say would be one thing or one tradition that your family has that brings you happiness?
I mean, I think it's always got to be about, well, I don't know, several things. Food.
Yeah.
Right. And, or maybe that's not an Australian thing. I don't know, but it's certainly
Yeah,
an American thing.
it is, yeah.
Yeah. And then my family in particular, we're all musically inclined. And so when we get together, we often will play music together.
I get jealous of that. I want that. That must be cool. So you actually get together and there's always music involved in your gatherings.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like a lot of my family have been professional musicians and or just, talented singers and whatever. And so, yeah, there's always some sort of musical theme. We either go and see music or we play music together. Or,
So I'm curious, do you think music is a big part of your fulfillment then? Because it's organically in you, isn't it?
I think that I used music before I understood that there, how to heal myself and to have a different experience. I used it a lot as a tool to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And I went out of high school, I went into college and I was a vocal jazz major. So.
Right. See how when we dig a little bit deeper, we discover all these gems? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so right now, what do you think in your life right now is the most exciting thing that you're going through?
Oh my gosh, I feel like everything is exciting. First of all, I just absolutely love the practice that I start my day with. I meditate, visualize, I go for a walking meditation with my dog, and then I read something that speaks to me on a deep level, like speaks to my soul. And I really don't care where I am. If I get to do all those things, it's so interesting too, because as I've come into this practice and I've come into just the practice of being human and recognizing things like peace and peace of mind and calm and stillness and how important those things are on a daily basis, I've come to realize that traveling is not as interesting to me anymore. Because I realized that I was trying to travel to get away. And now I don't have to get away because the internal part is all leveled out.
So your internal part is really where it's all happening.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, this is a very important question, I guess, because it's the opposite of that. So you are living in this stillness. So how do you cope with the chaos that's happening around us? How do you go, I'm going to shut that off? Because I think a lot of people want that answer. Like, oh my God, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, this is happening. And, then they hear people like yourself saying, oh, I got my practice, I go for my walk with my dog, and I find the stillness. And they don't fully understand that. So how do you turn the loudness off?
So for me, there was, I'm sure you've heard of Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Yeah. His book, A New Earth, there was something in that book where he explained something that I believe was the turning point for me, which was that you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions. And when you can recognize, so that's what was causing the roller coaster ride of events for me in my life. It was, I'm in reaction to everybody and everything. And then when I realized, oh, I am not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions. So who am I? I'm the spectator of those things. And so moving forward in my life, I just became the spectator. And so now this movie out here is like, just a cast of characters, I just go, oh, that's so interesting. This character has just come into my life. And they have all these nuances, and it's very interesting. And oh, they're in reaction to something right now. Oh, something's being agitated for them. That's so interesting. I wonder what that is. And and oh, now they've said something and I'm agitated. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So it's just becomes like,
So
it's that, how I explain it is like it's the space
yeah.
between who I really am and that outside noise you're talking about, the reactions and
Yeah.
the people freaking out and all that.
Yeah. See, it's, again, this is why I do connect with everything you're saying, because I call everyone else an avatar, and I'm playing a video game, and that's
Oh,
how
nice.
that's how I deal with it myself. Like, I just imagine that no one's real but me, right? So when I'm watching everything, I'm watching a game, and so I can't really respond to that. Because I think that is probably the biggest thing for the noise, is that you hit it on the head. People are attaching to the thoughts, which then makes what they're thinking real, rather than going inside. So if you didn't know anyone, right, and you had 1 minute to describe yourself, go for it. Tell us, how would you describe you?
Oh gosh, a recovering type A personality. That's something still working on. I like to call myself a B plus now, just because I recognize that, again, that's another thing I use to distract myself from feeling the feelings. I would say I have a bold personality, like most people, even though a lot of people will say, oh, you're really calm and it's really nice to be around you. When you're in my presence, I have a lot of energy, and the energy is strong. I sort of give that up to my dad because, I didn't get that regular message that a lot of women got, that you can't do this and you can't do that. My dad was like, you can be or do whatever you want. And he said it over and over and over again. And so I was blessed to have that experience.
Yeah.
I'm ultimately, a lot of stillness. And my mind is finally quiet after all those years of noise. Not always, but most of the time. And I just love this new life I've created in joy. When I didn't even know what joy was before, and I didn't know the difference between happiness and joy, and I couldn't have even told you what that even means. But discovering that just changed the game 100%. And I'm loving, and I can be naive, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't need to know all the things, and I don't need to know other people's motives. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like to give them and myself a wide berth to sort of navigate, recognizing that we're all sort of like dealing with our own stuff.
Yeah. This is just a comment about the now, because you and I are basically the same age, and I think a lot of people that I interview are a bit older. Do you believe, being a coach, that people can actually discover what you've discovered at a younger age?
Oh my gosh, I've had the pleasure of working with younger people, and I absolutely love it. I love these younger generations. I think they've got it right. They understand that work-life balance is a real thing, and that, work isn't everything and money isn't everything. And I mean, these millennials and Gen Z, I mean, they literally, like, they're not taking it anymore. They're just like, why are, like my daughter will say, like, how come car companies are allowed to make cars that aren't good for the environment? I was like, that is an outstanding question.
Yeah.
I hope that you can do something about this.
Yeah.
And they don't understand it. They're not willing to do status quo, and they're putting their money in businesses that, offer up these ideals that they believe are, real, like taking care of the environment
and themselves, in a way,
hoping,
isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited to see what happens.
I mean, I see some people that at that age group that are the opposite end, which I guess, I know that they'll get there. But what's the difference? Do you have to do much as a coach, or are you going to go and stand with your statement that they're already there, they're already able to see things differently? How do you help them to get through so they can start seeing things in the way that we've been talking? I know that they've got that mission with the world, but I'm talking about how do they find stillness?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step with everybody that I work with is really just understanding emotional awareness. Like, when am I in reaction? What am I in reaction to? Just recognizing that things don't happen in a box and,
Yeah,
it's
tick.
not all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just aren't even aware. Like, I've had clients that have come to me and I'll say, well, how were you feeling before you had that panic attack? And they'll go, I have no idea what that means. They don't have any feeling words. They don't
Yeah.
know what emotions are. And I think, whoa, like what just happened? But I think that's the piece, is kind of recognizing that, we are having emotions all the time. And most of them are, in my estimation, they're all wonderful. They're just, some of them we have labeled them not wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think just emotional awareness around, just tell, we like to tell that story, like, oh, my boss is mean and I don't want to go to work, and whatever the story is. And it's like, rather than tell the story, it's like, how come you're having that experience, right? Because you're in charge of that. And so, the emotional piece comes, again, about not pointing the finger at that person made me feel this way. It's, I'm feeling this way. Very interesting. Let me get curious about why that is.
Mm. Yeah, I think again that's probably the biggest thing. People like to blame and people like to be in drama. So that's, until we get over that, we're gonna, I think that it's essential that we have to go through that, because I think a lot of people think what you're talking about is being weak. You know what I mean? They think, if I don't tell that person off, if I don't complain about my boss, that means my boss wins and I'm a doormat. No, it's like, who cares about your boss? Every time that you worry about your boss, it means that you're giving the power to your boss. And it just takes a while for them to click and get that. And like you were saying earlier, sometimes they park it and then they might reach it at another point. I could talk to you for hours, but I know that we need to wrap it up soon. So the last question I guess I want to ask you is, how do you feel you're going to step into the new technological revolution with AIs and with the changes that are coming with all the robots and technologies that we're slowly getting a peek into? What's your take on how you would adapt to that?
My initial thought was not well. I mean, other than emotionally, I would be like, oh, okay, that's not for me. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I think it's amazing that you can try to simulate a person. However, I know, I'll give you an example. My folks have been married for almost 40 years. And I think, I've asked them the other day, I was like, do you guys ever, ask each other a question and you're surprised by the answer at this particular juncture? And they're like, yeah, all the time. And it's because we like to, or the brain likes to, file away this information, like, this person is conservative, this person is wacky, that person does these other things, right? And when the brain does that, it doesn't allow for the complexity of us as humans. And so I'm really not sure how AI is going to get around that piece. I've already seen some.
Well, we're already sort of living in it, Erin. Like right now on this call, we're utilizing a form of an AI. Like the way the camera, like I'm filming this and the camera's oscillating between you and I. That's an AI program that's picking up movement in you and I. And I don't think people realize that we're actually living in a part of the AI world. But I saw an interview last night, actually, and they interviewed this guy that's famous. I can't remember his name, though. And he said, why do you think everyone is so drawn to the 90s? Like, because the 90s is like such an era that we can all go to. And I was really fascinated by his answer. He said, well, the 90s is the last era that the human race had an opportunity to be themselves and to create. As soon as the phones got invented, we went into this different world. And it's in a way similar to what you were saying about we don't think about things anymore. Now those thoughts are sort of given to us. And so our brain isn't allowed to be creative. And when you actually look at the 20s, the zeros and the 10s and the 20s, there's really no creativity much in there. It's really sort of it's being pulled from old eras. And so I found that interesting, like, because I love the 90s and the 80s because it was so, so how do you feel about I know we live in the moment, but how do you feel about looking at your past and then thinking about your future when it comes to what we're talking about? Like, do you think that your happiness will be the same because you're still?
Oh yeah. I mean, freedom lies in the present moment. There's no getting around that. We think we're looking for all these other things, but we're really just looking for stillness.
All the
You
time.
know? Yeah. And that's, or at least that's been my experience is freedom lies in that place where I can, because right here, right now, in this moment, tell me what is the problem. Nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on right here. The
Yeah.
problem begins when we make up a story about, or we take from the past and project into the future what we think is going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen how we want, then we get to be in reaction. And so when you stop that pattern of behavior and you just go, okay, right here, right now, everything's okay. Even though I'm in an emotional reaction, I can go, okay, but what is actually happening right now? Nothing.
Yeah.
We're having a nice conversation. That's it.
Yeah, true. I know I promised that was the last question, but I need to ask you another question. One more. Because, I'll give an example to the listeners. So on Tuesday, it's now Friday morning in Australia, I lost everything on my computer. My computer, lost it. And I literally did exactly what you said. I sat there and I was so angry at Apple. I literally wanted to stab them through the phone. But then in that moment, I just did exactly what you said. I thought, well, what's going on right now? There's no problem. It's only stuff. And I'm really surprised at myself that I was able, because in the past I would have had the biggest tantrum, because it's just stuff. I can rebuild it. It's not like the end of the world. I'm still here. I can still be myself. It's just stuff on the computer. So can you give the listeners just maybe one small tip on how they can start to be still if they've never done it before? What can they do to start off?
One of the exercises I do to be in the present moment and that I teach is to go out into nature, or even if you have like a plant in your house and you just look at the plant in curiosity and wonder, you go like, oh, why is it that color and that shape? And why is that vein, red? And why, I wonder how much water and light it needs. And when you can focus all of your energy on one specific thing, especially something that is in nature, it blocks out all the other things. It's a bit like going to the movies, right? You go to the movies and you completely check out, but this is an opportunity to check in and go, there's quiet there when I just talk about the plant. There's a moment there when I look at a flower and I go, oh, I wonder why it's that color. I wonder why that bee likes it so much. I wonder, And so in that wonder and curiosity, it's a bit like going back to when you're a kid, where you're just like, oh, I don't even know what that is. What is that called? Oh, that's called a flower, because we labeled all these things along the way, and then they have, attached to them all the things we think about them. And when we stop doing that, then we get to just be. We just, like, we're human beings. We get to actually just be instead of being human doings, which is what we're really taught or conditioned to do, which is, action breeds whatever, success and all the things. And all of those things are external. None of those will bring you any sort of joy. There's not gonna, and that's one of the things I tell my clients, like, consistently, like, you need do nothing in order to have value. Nothing. You don't have to have a goal. You don't have to achieve anything. You have value because you exist. Whatever made us up made you of that. And that was super powerful and amazing. I can tell because it's a beautiful world we live in. So why would they shortchange you? You, the one person? No. Yeah. We're all the same. We're all star stuff.
It sounds like it's gratitude, isn't it? I think that the flower or the plant is something that we just take for granted now. But when you stop and actually look at it, that's when you realize that is as exciting as watching TV. Do you know what I mean? It's alive. Gosh. It's beautiful. And I think one thing that I've learned from you that could help other people, which I guess we can't blame fathers, but you have a very, very good father. And maybe we can encourage brand new parents to really just don't have the you can't conversation, because your father taught you that you can do anything. And I love that energy that you can feel through that, because if you're told you can't, that just creates fear. And that's a really big lesson that I'm taking away from this, is just to encourage people rather than to point out what they can't do. Do you feel like that your dad has been a big influence in your life?
Oh, absolutely. He's the one that gave me that book that we were talking about earlier, Meeting
Right.
Message Down Under.
Yeah.
That was the first self-development book that I read. And, I wasn't ready. I'm sure there were more gems in there than what I really took out of it. And I believe everything is in divine order. So, that was the stepping stone to the next thing, to the next seminar, to the next person, to the
So
next experience.
It's the moment that comes. It's like a sliding door moment. You either take it or you don't, but eventually you'll take it. And so, ERIN, I'm so blessed to have met you, because I know that we've just randomly connected. And after this half an hour, I just feel like I know you, because you were so open and vulnerable. And that's exactly what Eudaimonia is all about. It's just using inside to shine, and you're a big light. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I think it's so important to have a platform to talk about these things, because people are talking about it. It's certainly becoming more in the forefront, and I think it's really important to give people different ideas on how to live this life and actually enjoy themselves now.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about mental health problems all the time. We can talk about the good stuff as well. So that's why I wanted to do this, is because I do another podcast where we talk about mental health, and I was getting exhausted. Well, with this podcast, I always end up feeling really elevated. So I hope the listeners are feeling the same. So thanks again, ERIN, and we'll keep in touch. And namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. Now, don't forget the podcast is out on Wednesday mornings, so don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Now, for anyone interested, I'm going to have all the details about ERIN in the comments below, so please reach out to her. She's very friendly, and I'm sure she'll say hi. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.